What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? It's about that time where I catch everybody up to speed with some of the films that I've watched within the past month. I've started doing this since the beginning of 2024 and a little bit in the year before, and I don't think I'm ever going to stop because I really like doing it, so I'm going to keep doing it. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and start with this. I got my little list right here. Oh, flash it. You didn't get to see it. Ha. So the first movie I'm gonna talk about is a film called A Short Film About Killing. And this is a film that's directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski, the director behind the Three Colors trilogy and many more. In terms of the Three Colors trilogy, I've only seen Three Colors Blue. I haven't seen anything beyond that. I actually bought the box set, but I haven't, again, dived into it yet. I know, I'm a piece of shit. I will get to it eventually. Don't know when that's going to be, but I will do it. But with that being said, A Short Film About Killing is a short film about killing. It's a very direct and simple film. Now, it's not a short film in the sense that it's an actual short film. Like, it's only like 20 minutes long. It's actually a full-length film. It's about an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. But it's a very poignant and powerful film, and I think expresses exactly what it wants to say in the most direct but effective and compelling way. And I really admire this film for a few reasons, but one of them being the fact that it's a film that is completely set on expressing Krzysztof Kieslowski's beliefs regarding the death penalty. You could tell that the main goal, the ultimate goal of this film, is to get everybody to understand why the death penalty is problematic. And I really enjoyed the way that he approached the subject, because he could have taken the easy route and just had a main character that was wrongfully convicted for murder, and then they give him the death penalty and he dies, and it's a very easy way to get people on board with the problematic nature of capital punishment. But instead he goes even further, and he has a more complicated and complex task, a more complex task even in the philosophical sense, because what he does here is he demonstrates that the person that ultimately does have a death sentence actually does commit murder, and it's not even a justified murder. It's a very senseless act of murder. And he still is able to find a way to get the audience to understand that even under this circumstance, the death penalty should not exist. And it's a great discussion piece. Like, it's a film a lot of people are going to watch, have watched, and really gets people thinking about the subject a lot. From what I've read upon its actual social impact, the country that this was released in, I think, put a hold on capital punishment for a short amount of time just because of this movie. I could be wrong, so if y'all want, you can fact check me on that. But as far as I understand, that's what happened. But I will say it is a bit of a slow movie. Once it starts, it kind of takes a while for it to kind of get to the point and get the ball rolling. From what I heard, this is actually a segment from the Decalogue series that he also wrote and directed. But this is the more expanded and extended version of the shorter segment that's within the Decalogue series. And I feel like even though it's a short film, you can kind of feel that. Because, it does feel like a little bit of a slog in the first and second act. As it's trying to establish these characters and get some sort of narrative and conflict going. But at the same time, I think it makes the film feel a little bit more earned as well. I haven't seen the Decalogue series version, so there's a chance I might actually like that one more, because of this film, again, it did feel a bit slow. But I think that it's a very by the end of it, it's very rewarding. Because in this film, you have these two characters in the film, and I love how you don't really know which one is going to be the murderer, because they both come off psychopathic. they have their own like little psychopathic behaviors, and you're just kind of wondering who's the actual bad guy here. And I think that's kind of the point of its presentation as well. Um, Trying to showcase that even some senseless acts of murder, not that it doesn't yield a bad result, but not all senseless acts of murder end up with good people being killed. I guess. I think it's just trying to set up a more complex and somewhat realistic philosophical examination of how some things may happen. Um, but yeah, but I think by the end of this film, it kind of makes it again. I think it makes it worth your time because there's this whole there. I'll just say that there's a dialogue exchange that lasts for like 15 minutes, and it gives us insight into the murderer's mind and his past and what kind of led up into the situation that he's in, and makes it again. It demonstrates how complex life is and how complex people are, and it's really easy just to paint somebody as a sick murderer, but it's a lot more difficult to listen to their story and understand what got them there. Not saying that it justifies what they did, obviously not in the slightest, but makes you at the very least think about capital punishment in a more critical way. And for that reason, I enjoyed it. So that's all I'll say. I'll give a short film about killing a strong 7 out of 10. Maybe upon rewatch, I'll give it an 8. Maybe if I watch the Decalogue version, I'll give it an 8. Um, but it's still a great movie. I can say that it's a great movie. So let's move on to something a little bit just fun. That was kind of a downer kind of movie. Let's talk about a film called Tremors. Um, Tremors is a movie that I've known about my entire life, and I've never taken the time to just check it out. Um, even when I was a kid, I would see like trailers for this, and it would kind of freak me out a little bit. I'm like, what the hell? This is kind of looks terrifying. So I think as a kid, I kind of inched away from it, and I just never got back around to it as an adult. And as an adult, I would look at it and be like, this just looks schlocky and stupid. And yeah, it's stupid, but honestly, it's a whole lot of fun. Like Tremors is, it's such an entertaining, like it's a it's a dumb movie, but it's so entertaining and it's always energetic. Like once this film gets going, I feel like it never lets a foot off the gas, and it just is always like delivering a new action set piece, a new horrific action horror situation, and the practical effects for the actual Tremor monsters are just fucking awesome. I mean, they are gnarly. And I mean, I can, obviously they did the practical effects because that was just kind of the standard to, for the time. And I'm glad they went that. I mean, I'm glad that, that we had an era of just people using uh, practical effects because I think it holds the film up more. Like, I feel like if they even attempted CGI, which they did somewhat have at the time, um, this film would not really hold up nearly as good as it does. Like, you could tell, like, there was so much effort poured into the practical effects and the animatronics, and again, a lot of the action set pieces that just make it constantly entertaining. It's just a dumb, fun, like B grade monster movie that knows exactly what it is, and it just delivers and delivers and delivers all the way up until the end. And apparently, Kevin Bacon was like, when at first when he made this movie, he was very like ashamed of it. Like he wasn't proud of it at all. He kind of like disowned this movie for a long time, because he thought it was like a career killer. He thought after he made this movie that he was like, oh well, there goes my career. But in hindsight now, he looks at it and he thinks of, and he has said that he had so much fun shooting this movie. So I don't know. But Tremors is just a really fun movie, guys. I really don't know what else to say about it. It's just it. If you want a dumb, fun action movie that is never boring, in my opinion, you should watch Tremors. So honestly, I'm gonna give Tremors a soft 8 out of 10. Like for the genre and for what it's going for, I think it is awesome. It does exactly what it needs to do and even more. And if you're looking for that kind of movie, it's gonna deliver for sure. Um, So yeah, let's move on to something else. Let's move on to Millennium Actress, which is a Satoshi Kon film. So as far as Satoshi Kon goes, I've seen Paprika, I've seen Perfect Blue, and I've seen Tokyo Godfathers. And now I've seen Millennium Actress. And I think Millennium Actress is my third favorite. I really like this movie. I'm not in love with it, but I do really like it because it has, well, first off, it tackles um a very famous and reoccurring theme in cinema, which is um trying to explore the philosophical idea behind the journey being more valuable than the destination itself. And it does so in this really meta odyssey exploration of this love letter to cinema type presentation. Like the main character of this movie is an actress, and like she's a straight film star who's starred in many big time movies. And through the narrative structure of this film is her kind of retelling her actual life story through the lens of the movies that she starred in. And also, like, through this lens, it kind of also explores how art inspires life and life inspires art. And it's told in this really surreal, dreamlike way to where you don't really know what's fact or fiction. But again, that's kind of the point, is trying to blur the line between art and reality. And um and then again, yeah, this is, and ultimately, like, by the end of this film, this is a film that is, it's it's interpretable. It's very interpretable about what you take away from it thematically and emotionally. To me, this came off incredibly melancholy. I don't know if tragic is the right word, which is why I avoided it. It comes off more melancholy in the sense that you don't necessarily know if the main actress feels like she wasted her life, uh, which for in her pursuit of love for this one person, which I won't spoil too much. Um, but again, this film does, in this really like symbolic way too, with how it incorporates like the spaceship, is about expressing the ideas between expressing the idea that the journey is more valuable than the destination. And I mean, it's a really cool movie. The only reason why I'm not in love with it is because there's a lot of dialogue that is just way too on the nose. But that's something that I always find issue with most Japanese cinema, and especially Japanese animation. I love Japanese cinema, but this problem is more reoccurring in Japanese animation. And I avoid to really call it a problem because it's just really what I don't necessarily find creative in writing. But every culture kind of has their own thing. But this movie does kind of fall into a lot of those things where characters are reinforcing ideas and information through dialogue, that we don't need to have that reinforced or even said it in any way. Um, but otherwise, it is a really good movie, and I definitely recommend it. So I'll give Millennium Actress a solid 7 out of 10. All right, next film we have is Drowning by Numbers. Uh, this is a film directed by Peter Greenaway. Now, the only Peter Greenaway film I've seen is The Thief, The Cook, Her Wife, and Her Lover. And I really dug that movie a lot. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but overall, the presentation to that film was pretty immaculate and incredibly stylistic. And you get you get a lot of that in Drowning by Numbers. Drowning by Numbers is such, to me, I feel like it's been a while since I've seen The Thief, The Cook, Her Wife, and Her Lover, but I think Drowning by Numbers is a more boundary pushing and kind of uncomfortable movie for most people because it has a very twisted and dark sense of humor, and also a pretty boundaryless depiction of sexuality and perversion. And it's honestly like I could tell that Wes Anderson took a lot of inspiration from Peter Greenaway, at least with this film. because of just this. There has a very meticulous and constructed presentation within the production design and the way that the camera moves throughout the film, and there's just a quirkiness to it all, like to its aesthetic and to the way like the characters talk to each other. Um, it doesn't. It's not attempting to mimic real life. It just has its own worldly quirkiness to it, and personally, I really dug the way that this film did it. Like, I just think it's a really funny movie. Like, I found a lot of the humor to land with me, because it is dark and clever in a lot of ways. And ultimately, this is a film. I guess I should explain the plot, but in a very simple plot explanation of this film is this: you have um this family tree of women who kind of go down the generation line of the grandma, the mom, and the daughter, and they're all out to get their husbands eventually, and they basically lean towards the town coroner to try to at least attempt to cover up their evil doings. And this leads to blackmail, and this leads to a corrupt use of power. And ultimately, I do feel like this film is an examination of how perversion and sexuality and power corrupt the human mind and corrupt our actions in reality. And um, it's just a really interesting and darkly humorous dynamic between these women and the coroner, and how they are like manipulating him and what he eventually feels he's gonna get out of it sexually. And I don't know. This is also a film I feel like about the faults of men. I mean, also women as well, but I think like men are just kind of in this film a kind of a punching bag in one way. They're kind of the center of the joke for a lot of it. But it's explored in a very unique and humorous way. Um, I don't know. I like this movie a lot. I really did. It's not gonna be for everybody, but it's a really creative and, again, like, it has a very twisted sense of humor. And to me, the craft is quite meticulous, and it's hard not to feel engaged with it because of that. Um, but I mean, really, my only issue is that I think some of the shtick started to wear off, like somewhere in the second act. There was a whole like 20 minutes of this movie, like in the middle, where it was kind of relying on its shtick and its quirk alone for me to like feel engaged. And I was just kind of getting a little tired of it. And then the plot started, more conflict started to arise in the third act, and then I started getting really into it again. So, um, I don't know. I think that's all I gotta say about it. With that being said, I'll give Drowning by Numbers a soft 8 out of 10. Moving on to the next and final film is Umberto D. Um, Now, this is a heavy film. This is the heaviest film on this list. And this is, I don't know how many Italian neorealist films that I've seen, but this is really the only one that I can recall. This is from the same director of the famous Bicycle Thieves movie. And I watched Bicycle Thieves in college, but honestly, I don't remember because it was so long ago. So, I don't know. I've seen a few, but Umberto D is going to be like the crown jewel of the ones that I have seen, because this film is so fucking great. I love this movie. It is, again, it's a heavy film to get through because it's just so like emotionally draining, but it is a rewarding experience. It's in terms of the plot, it follows this old man who's basically relying only on the government pension, and for most people it's not enough, but for him it's even worse because he's in debt, and he owes his landlord and some other people money, and he just can't get out of the hole, and he doesn't have any family, and he only has his dog. Um, so it's a film that shows our main character running into one complication and another, and trying to find a way out of it. whether it's selling his belongings to get, to pay off his debts, even some of his belongings that have deep sentimental value. He needs to do it because he needs to pay his debt and so he can have a place to live. And I just love the presentation of this movie because it doesn't feel the need to be eventful. And don't get me wrong, this is a pretty eventful movie in my opinion, but it's very subtle and organic with it. There's nothing in this film that ever feels like it's pushing beyond reality to give people a cinematic moment. And I think that's probably the huge appeal behind this Italian neo-realist movement, because it just feels so real, and it's never begging for attention. Like, there's just one beautiful scene in this movie that's not even involving the old man. It's involving this maid character who has this the film shows us this incredibly intimate moment with her that's basically plotless. There's nothing here that's driving the plot at all. But it's like this 5-minute scene of her in the kitchen making tea, and it's such a beautiful yet kind of tragic character moment that with zero dialogue, and it lets the audience in on how she's feeling deep inside. And it's just a really, really well directed scene, and I love this movie for that as well. But yeah, like, this film, it's probably gonna yank some tears out of you because it just really goes there, especially with the third act of this film. It just really goes there, and it is emotionally effective and so compelling. Um, there's there again. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I did find the end of this film, the actual ending, to be oddly uplifting, and it's gonna people are gonna interpret it in different ways. But for me personally, I feel like there was an uplifting character moment and attitude towards the ending. And again, I won't get into details about what exactly the ending is for those who haven't seen it. But it does obviously involve the old man and his dog. It's something incredibly crucial that happens there at the end. And I don't know, I just think it's a really great ending and a very intense moment, like a whole intense sequence, honestly. Emotionally, it was so draining, but it was so good. It was so good. Like, really well written, beautifully acted, beautifully directed. And I just loved it. I loved it. I was really impacted by it. And I think it's great. I can't wait to watch it again. Um, I think the only small thing I have against the movie, as I wasn't always a fan of the score. There are moments where the score is kind of has this kind of emotional droning to it, that feels like it's a little bit over the top. Like, I feel like there's times where I feel the emotion already, and I don't necessarily need the score to be there. Um, but beyond that, I really don't have much criticism with the movie. Like, in terms of writing and directing and acting, it's basically perfect. Um, and I can't wait to buy this on Criterion because it's on Criterion. So, anyway, I am going to give Umberto D a soft to solid 9 out of 10. It really is like an awesome, beautifully melancholy slash tragic kind of movie, and I highly recommend everybody to watch it. To me, it was never boring, always engaging, and yeah, I think that's it, guys. That's about it. Those are the films that I watched in April, and I look forward to talking about the films that I watch in this month of May. So if you really enjoyed what I had to say about all these films, please give this video a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film related content.